Welcome back to another episode of the Nebraska Shoot Around podcast. Unfortunately, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow on Wednesday, and that means we're in store for 6 more weeks of disappointing Nebraska basketball, I think. That's what that means, right, Jacob?
That's what that means. As Bill Murray put so eloquently, well, it's Groundhog Day again. The Nebraska basketball story for this season, and most specifically this last stretch of games, including two gut kicks in their own right in these 2 most recent games that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yep. And that is my co-host, as always, Jacob Bigelow, joining me. Bigelow, you've got some things kind of in the works on your end around Nebraska basketball. Would you like to tell the listeners kind of what you've got going on?
Yeah, so I recently joined up as a contributing writer with Huskers Illustrated. So, of course, my first game, technically covering the team, me and Jacob got to sit next to each other at the Rutgers game this past Saturday. And after the past couple years of us sitting next to each other at various basketball games throughout this state, it wasn't that big of a change, I guess. But gonna be doing monthly columns on the remainder of the season, I guess. My first one came out last week, talking about just some ways to even think of hypothetical reasons to be positive about what's happened this season, things to possibly look forward to, just trying to not be complete and total doom and gloom. But there'll be more to come on that. We're working on it. A lot of good people involved. But yeah, working on that now, and I'm excited to be back at PBA. The Rutgers game was my first time down there since the Creighton game in November. So it felt good to be back and walking out of that tunnel like I used to for a couple of years. It felt nice.
Good. Well, I guess it kind of transitioning. You mentioned things to be optimistic about. We can probably. It starts and maybe ends with Bryce McGowens right now. He won Big Ten Freshman of the Week honors last week alongside Alexis Markowski. So Nebraska won the award.
Can you give the Big Ten Freshman of the Year to a player on the team that finishes last in the conference?
We're gonna find out because the way he's been playing lately, he's really turning it up. Over his last 7, he's averaging 20 points a game on 45, 38, 86 shooting splits. And over this last 4, where he became the first Nebraska freshman to have 4 consecutive 20-plus point games, he's averaging 24 a game on 45, 35, 86 shooting. And there's 35 free throw attempts in those 4 games. So
well, and 18 of those free throw attempts being in 1 game doesn't hurt too much either. We can start with Rutgers, obviously. Saturday 5:30. I liked the 5:30 start. I'll lead with that. But that's 63-61 loss for Nebraska, where they led for about 38 and a half minutes of game time. The only problem is basketball games are 40 minutes long. They did what a game for Bryce. Depending on, some people thought it was Bryce's best game. Like we said, 18 free throw attempts. He finished with 29, right?
Yes, tied his career high.
Yep, tied his career high with 29 points. The only problem was that was about the only thing Nebraska had going on offense, and it showed down the stretch in calling it a run is a compliment of Rutgers, just kind of punched and clawed and climbed back into it. Was not exactly an aesthetically pleasing game, nor an aesthetically pleasing finish. But Rutgers did what they needed to do down the stretch to come back and get a win on the road. I know you charted some stretches of where Nebraska saw their lead slip. Yeah. What'd you see?
Well, first, it's important to note that Alonzo Bird Jr. did not play in this game. He was on the bench in street clothes. He had found out shortly before the game that his aunt had passed away, and she was someone he was really close with. So I think coaching staff and talking with him, and I think also reflecting on how the past week of practices had gone, talking with where he was mentally, that they offered to kind of send him home, but he decided that he wanted to be with the team. So he was there on the bench. He did not play. And I mean, I know obviously the narrative is against Verge at this point, and he's earned a lot of it. But at the same time, this game also proved that while he does cause some problems, the solution isn't just taking him out of the picture, because it does leave you really limited, particularly when Kobe Webster is struggling as much as he did. He got the start and promptly went 0 for 10 with 1 assist and 2 turnovers. So that's it. I've heard a lot of people talk about how they look much better with Kobe in there at the point, as opposed to Verge. And I mean, plus minus isn't like there's not a whole lot like you can go off there, but it's not dramatically different. Like I think the overall plus minus from one to another, just based on the difference in minutes, they struggle with both in there. And Kobe's had some stretches where the ball movement was good with him. It looks really good when he's actually knocking down those shots, but overall he's not quite shooting well enough at this point to truly be a net positive, I think. So they got off to a great start. They jumped out. I mean, a very good start. Defensively, they played well early on, forced Rutgers into some tough shots, really defended Ron Harper Jr. well all game long, which did not happen when they played up in Piscataway. They had 29 in that game. He made 1 shot from the field in this one. But I mean, they got off to a great start. A lot of that was shot making though. They led 31-20 about 16 minutes into the game, and they were 4-9 from 3 during that stretch, and they made 2 threes the rest of the game. So that's your team looks a lot better when the shots are going in, and they were 5 of 16 inside the arc during that stretch. So it wasn't like they were playing great offensively. They were just defending well enough and hitting enough shots to build a big lead. And then after that, things kind of were back and forth, up and down. They went through multiple droughts from the field where they really struggled to score. I mean, the last 4 minutes of the half, they didn't score. They missed all 8 shots and had 3 turnovers. And so you go from 31-20 to 31-28 at halftime. And instead of feeling great about having a great half, you go into the locker room kind of in a little bit of panic mode, like, oh, what just happened? We put all that work in to build up this lead, and then suddenly it's gone. And they come out of the second half, and I mean, they continued to defend there, but they only made 1 of their first 4 shots, had 2 more turnovers in the first 3.5 minutes or so. Put together a little spurt there. They outscored them 7-2 in less than 2 minutes, hit 3 of their 5 shots, got to the free throw line once. So you found a little bit there where they had a little burst there. And then Rutgers answered back, and it was turnovers and 1 of 5 or 2 of 6. Yeah, 1 of 5 shooting. They got outscored 6-2 during that stretch. So in nearly 5 minutes of play, you turn the ball over 4 times, miss 4 shots, including 3 from 3. So that's kind of when things really started to get off the rails, and they had a nice little lead there. They actually put together a little stretch where they did outscore Rutgers after that. They outscored them 10-7 there to kind of build up an 8-point lead, kind of heading into the stretch run. But a lot of that was free throws. They were 6-9 from the free throw line, including that Bryce going 2 of 4 on the possession with the foul and the technical on Rutgers freshman Jalen Miller. So they weren't playing particularly. They were 2 of 5 from the field during that stretch. It wasn't like they were scoring really well, but they still did enough there and got to the line. But things got really stagnant there. Basically, during that stretch, they came down and ran a high ball screen for Bryce every single time. They went right into that. There was no kind of action to lead into it. There was not a whole lot of movement off the ball. It was just pick and roll, Bryce, go make a play. And that kind of fed into the stretch run where they got outscored 18-8 over the final 6 minutes and 6 seconds. They shot 1 of 8 from the field, 5 of 7 from the free throw line, and had 4 turnovers. And that is kind of where things got away from them. And That's Rutgers came down and took the lead there, and Nebraska. I guess we probably need to talk about the kind of the stretch run there in a little bit more detail. But in general, like I went through and charted all the plays. Same thing that they had been doing. Basically, Bryce, go make a play. They were running a lot of side ball screens. They were running a lot of basically that's what they were running, a lot of side ball screens with Derek Walker. And Rutgers, I mean, I mentioned the stagnation that had kind of led into this. I think Rutgers really keyed in on that. And they realized that, hey, nobody else is going to beat us right now. This is the one guy that they've got going. And so they were icing the ball screens. They were doubling, they were hedging. They were just sending the help side when he did get past his man. They were just basically defending, putting all their energy into defending Bryce. And I honestly would like to sit down with Bryce and watch the tape of this, just kind of get his reaction. I think you go back and watch his film, and this is really good teaching tape. Good experience for him, because I thought he missed a lot of opportunities. I didn't think he read those situations very well. He had some stretches early in the game where he made really good reads, and obviously he scored 29 points and carried a huge offensive load. So there was a lot of positive, a lot of negative in this, a lot to learn from. That is a lot of responsibility to put on a true freshman in that environment, to basically, Bryce, go win us this game. And he wasn't able to do it, and he didn't really get any help either. The few times he did give the ball up down the stretch, they didn't really do anything with it, unfortunately. But they still had their chance to get it tied up after they had given away the lead. And unfortunately, Kobe Webster did not get fouled on the shot. That was a horrible call.
Nope. Very bad. Very, very bad call.
2 hands on the ball handle as he was dribbling. I think Geo Baker, he pulled his hands back, and then Kobe jumped up in the air and chucked the ball at the rim. And somehow they gave him the foul on the shot. So the fact that he went up and missed the first free throw was like, it's like, he probably didn't deserve to be shooting. He only deserved to be shooting 2 anyway. But still, it's another example of Nebraska. How many times now this season have they had guys at the free throw line with the chance to win or tie a game?
It's at least 3. It's at least 3. Bryce at NC State.
Yeah.
Lat Ohio State, and Kobe against Rutgers. Yeah, that's 3.
And I mean, Kobe, I think hasn't shot particularly well from the free throw line this season. But I mean, those are 3 of your better free throw shooters, just looking at it. Bryce, 83, Lat, I guess 68, and Kobe's down at 66 now this season. That's not great, but still, those are 3, 2 veterans and your 5-star freshman. All these guys had chances to win these games, and they haven't been able to do it. So it's just kind of the same old thing. Like we led up talking about Groundhog Day with this game, and it's kind of the same thing. And we'll talk about Michigan momentarily, but it was kind of the same thing as well. So that was a lot of me rambling, kind of going through my notes or whatever. What did you take away from that game?
I was impressed with Bryce. How can you not be, 29 points? He was on 6-17 shooting, but anytime you're able to draw 18 free throws, and, Coach Hoiberg made note of that after the game, saying that, any age drawing 18 free throws in a game is impressive. But, he didn't get much, help from elsewhere. The only other player in double figures was his brother. I did enjoy that sequence they had where Trey had the block on one end and Bryce had the fancy finish at the other end. That was probably the biggest pop we saw in the crowd. Was that sequence right there. And then this was probably the least we've seen of Keisei Tominaga in a game. Only was in there for about 5 minutes. We did have a Keon Edwards sighting. We had another Keon Edwards sighting against Michigan, but and then I guess I didn't count up the number of guys who played. Rutgers played 7 guys off the bench. They played 12 guys. They were using They were using any means necessary. I mean, we looked at each other a couple times when they had guys check in. We're like, who is that? Who is this guy? Like, what? Where was he?
Yeah, the Oscar Palmquist knocked down a 3, and I'm like, wait, who? What?
What? Yeah, Oscar Palmquist and Ralph Gonzalez Ag. I'm like, who are these guys? But I mean, all hands on deck. I mean, if there's any coach in the Big Ten who I'd expect to just pull guys out of nowhere and they're going to make a shot or make a play on you, it'd be Steve Pikiell at Rutgers. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like I've said this, some iteration of this sentence for almost every game this year. If you were to tell me that, Nebraska is going to match up with Rutgers and Ron Harper is going to be 1 of 9 and Geo Baker is going to be 6 for 18, I'd say I like Nebraska's chances. If they're, playing at home and their opponent goes 3 of 19 from 3, I'm like, all right, I like Nebraska's chances. But, we saw just how to let a game slip. It's getting eerie, and it was even more eerie in this game we're getting ready to talk about on Tuesday night against Michigan.
Yeah, might as well. I think we've kind of covered this one well enough because, again, it's a game that I think fans have seen a lot in the season, and Michigan was the same way. And although it's similar ending, similar story, but they got there in a very different way. It was an 85-79 final. So this time Nebraska actually got going offensively, had a lot of success. It was probably one of their better scoring games of the season. But they could not get any stops, particularly in the second half and down the stretch when they needed to. And this Nebraska had one of their better first halves of the season. They led 44-37, and they led by more than that before kind of giving up a little
run at the end of the first half.
Mini run. Yeah, they led by 10 with about minute and a half to play, a little over a minute to play. Lat knocked down a 3 to put them up 43-33 with minute 17 to play. And Michigan closed the half on a little quick little 4-1 run to cut into it, but that's still 44-37. That's a great half. You can feel good about that heading in the second. The key detail of that, though, was that Hunter Dickinson, Michigan,
the most humble man in the Big Ten, Hunter Dickinson, was in foul trouble in the first half. And
played 5 minutes.
Yep, 5 minutes.
And to be fair, Nebraska was in foul trouble too. But I mean, Lat and Derek Walker, Latman and Derek Walker both had 2 fouls, and Eduardo Andre had 3, I believe, in the first half.
Right. Yep, I think you're right.
So, but I mean, you're comparing an All-American to, as good as Derek has been this season. He's not quite the 7'1" Hunter Dickinson, who is an automatic bucket in the post. So Dickinson, you felt good, but there was still kind of that feeling like, yeah, but that he's probably going to be playing more than 5 minutes in the second half. And Nebraska actually defended him well enough in the first time. I believe he had 15 points on 14 shots, which you'll take all day long. But they just, to do that though, I think they left a lot of open shooters, and Michigan just rained threes on them. And this time I think they tried to mix it up between going one-on-one and double teaming, but he just absolutely picked them apart. He finished with 26 points in 23 minutes. And I believe he had 12 points in the first 7 minutes of the second half or something like that.
It felt like even less than that. It felt like he was just on a one-man mission to start the second half. And they weren't doubling right away either. I mean, he just made it look easy at the start of that second half, I felt like.
I think he had 12.6 boards and two blocks in the first 7 or so minutes, in which Michigan turned their halftime deficit into a 10-point lead, just like that. It went from Nebraska was up 10 with a little bit to go left in the first half, and then about 8-9 minutes of game time later, here they are down by 10.
It was like a 23-2 run. I'm pretty sure it was like a 23, either 23-2 or 23-4, like counting the end of the first half, the start of the second half. If I remember right.
Yeah, it was something like that. Definitely a big run for Michigan, and it really was Dickinson making every play down the stretch. And that's the value of having a player like that. But credit to Nebraska, they weathered the storm and they got back into the game, and they actually they took the lead. And this is where the game gets a little rough here. So Fred Hoiberg made his last substitution at the 12:33 mark. At that point, Michigan was down or up by 8. So he went with Bryce McGowens, Kobe Webster, Keisei Tominaga, CJ Wilcher, and Derek Walker. So those are the 5 he went with at the 12:33 mark. He did not sub again until the 3-second mark of the game, and that was only because Derek Walker fouled out. So that's a long time to be out there playing consecutively and still have energy to make big plays down the stretch. But he stuck with that group because they did bring a lot of energy. They got him right back in it, and a lot of it was Keisei Tominaga, who had 2 really impressive finishes at the basket, and then attacking closeouts, and then Hoiberg drew up an after timeout play for him, where he knocked down a 3, and at that point the 3 put them up by 7. It was 73-66 with 6:08 to play, and you're feeling good, and it goes down on the other end. Keisei comes out of nowhere to absolutely stuff Hunter Dickinson from behind. It could not have been any cleaner of a block, and the official blew his whistle. And I don't know if he just assumed that there's no physical way that this little guy listed at 6'2" could get up and cleanly block the 7'1" monster, or what happened there, because live it looked incredibly clean. On the replay,
looked even more clean.
It honestly might be the cleanest block I'll see all season long. And somehow they blew the whistle. And Keisei's kind of reactions to officiating and no calls in particular have been somewhat entertaining all season. I'll put it that way. It seems like he's
very, very animated.
Yes, that's a good word.
Very animated.
He truly seems to be unable to understand why officials don't make a call when he thinks he should get one. Like, he just is legitimately baffled. And at this point, he went too far. He ran out to half court, was waving his arms, couldn't believe it.
So you can do the first part. You can have the shocked face. You can have the shocked face, like, what, me? Yeah. And I think I tweeted, don't worry, Keisei, Steve McJunkins, and DJ Carstensen made me have very similar reactions quite a few times. But you can't do the running with your arms flailing, going out to midcourt. You can't do that.
Yeah, Kobe tried to grab him. He didn't grab him quickly enough or forcefully enough, and was unable to avoid the technical. So you went from up 7 to giving Michigan 4 free throws. And now it's a 73-70 game. And you go down and turn the ball over immediately, and then give up an offensive rebound off a missed 3. And Dickinson hit 2 free throws to tie it. So just like that, the kind of the energy, the momentum, all gone. And Michigan pulled ahead by 4, 79-75 on a layup from Devontae Jones off a turnover, and with about 2:05 to play. So you're feeling, oh boy, here we go. Oh, sorry, moved on. The Keisei deal, it's a tough situation because he had provided you with a big spark with the plays that he did make. But we talked about the accountability a few episodes back, and I just don't understand how you can leave that guy in the game after that. It's got to be a teaching moment, if nothing else. And you just can't because that was incredibly costly. And it's just a guy losing control of his emotions. And he left him out there.
Yeah, and we didn't see any reaction from the bench. I don't think they even really showed anything at the bench on the BTN broadcast. But I mean, a certain former coach that I spent a couple years around, if one of his guys did that, he's not staying in the game. No, he's just, I mean, and I understand riding the hot hand, like you said, and that was Fred's rationale, after the game. But in crunch time on the road, you're in a venue where your program's never won. It's one of two Big Ten road venues where Nebraska has not won a game. And what do you need? What do you need to win games? You need shots, and you need shots to go in. And I mean, this lineup they had, I mean, I just don't. I mean, wasn't Trey the last? I think Trey was the last sub at the 12-minute mark, and Verge was subbed out at the 16-minute mark, and that just. I mean, that lineup, right when they made the subs, I was sitting next to my roommate and I looked at my roommate and I said, I hate this lineup. I hate it. I'm like, what? Like, and it started off well. But like you said, the 4-point trip with a 7-point lead, it's a very quick way to hand momentum over.
Yeah. And so Michigan they pulled ahead 79-75 with 2 minutes to play. And it was kind of crunch time. You got to go make a play. They got the ball into Bryce, and he made a tough little turnaround. Tough little kind of fadeaway jumper in the paint off a baseline play. So tough bucket by him, big time play. They got a stop on the next possession, brought it down. And got it to CJ, and he attacked baseline, got the ball knocked free from his hand, got it back, and got fouled by Hunter Dickinson. Hit both free throws to tie it up with 1:20 to go. And again, 2 free throws. So you had all the opportunity in the world to make substitutions at that point. You biggest defensive possession of the game. He stuck with the same 5. Again, the 5 that had just played 10 consecutive minutes and includes Tominaga and Webster with McGowens in the backcourt. So not exactly your best defensive players. And no subs. They went down, and immediately Jones kind of got the ball in the wing and fed Hunter Dickinson just above the block. Casey turned as if he was going to double, and immediately Jones cut baseline. Nice little give and go, uncontested layup. And that's just a tough shot to give up in that situation. Just way too easy to score. And again, I don't understand not to be mean to Casey, but why was he in the game for that possession? And then you move forward, and they go down needing a bucket, and Kobe got the ball poked away from him. He's trying to make a play and just had the ball taken away from him. And so turnover, they go down. They still have a shot though. You get a stop here, you can go down, and you're still only down 2. And they force, Michigan, the Jones pulled up, who was 0 for 3, I think, at that point, from 3, 0 for 2, 0 for 3.
Michigan was 1 for 14 from 3 when this shot goes up.
Yeah, so you want that shot all game long. Yep, sure, take an off the dribble 3. And what do coaches tell you the entire thing about long shots when you're growing up playing basketball?
Hand down, man down?
Well, no. What happens when a long jumper? What kind of rebound is it going to be?
Oh, it's going to be a long rebound, long shot, long rebound.
Yep. And Casey, again, it was Casey. He kind of turned to find his man, but didn't make any contact. Just kind of kept giving up ground down below the free throw line, and then tried to seek him out and box him out. And at that point, it was too late. Kobe Buffkin had a couple inches on him. Went up, got the rebound, kicked it out. They got the ball to their super senior Eli Brooks, fouled him, and he hit both to put them up 4 and essentially seal the game. So you go down, Kobe fires up a 3, misses, and they hit 2 more free throws with 3 seconds left. So that's how you lose by 6 in a game that was tied with 2 minutes to play. And again, I don't understand Hoiberg's decision making down the stretch here. I didn't love what they were doing offensively against Rutgers. I talked about how stagnant and predictable it had gotten. talked about here about the lineup choices. And again, playing guys 12 straight minutes and expecting them to have the energy to go get a key rebound, to move their feet, to have their hands up when you really need to stop, to have the legs to make a shot down the stretch. That's a long time to be playing consecutively. And I don't understand not going offense, defense, at least down the stretch there. And they had
situational subbing. I mean, it's kind of a given coming down the stretch, and a game as tight as this one was, at least for a time. Yeah. And I was pretty puzzled too.
And Trey McGowens, he played 34 minutes in their last game. So I have a hard time believing that his status coming back from the injury was the reason for him not getting put back in the game there. You got to have your best defensive players on the floor when you need to stop. And you had the opportunity to do that with the free throws, and just kind of rolled with it, and guys go win the game, and they weren't able to do it. So, I mean, we've seen all season just at different stretches, it's been different guys failing to make plays, making the wrong play. And I thought these last two games in particular, Hoiberg's decision-making really hurt them.
Yeah. I mean, I think I told you that, the question that I had written down to ask Fred after Rutgers was, was there like, what did the offensive game plan look like when you could tell that Rutgers, a team who prides themselves on, physical, get after you, get in your face defense, was, honing in on Bryce. I wish I would have asked it, but I bit my tongue. I mean, this game, I just don't, Michigan had, obviously Dickinson's the focal point of your scouting report, and obviously he finishes with 26-8, but their backcourt played really well too, and I just don't know why you have your top defender sitting on the bench for the last 12 minutes when Jones and Brooks, they're no slouches. They both made, Dickinson had the most, was the leading scorer, but I think Jones and Brooks were the ones who made the winning plays down the stretch for Michigan.
And they for 38 points.
Yep. And they had mismatches on them that entire last 12 minutes. So, it's, just very, very confusing. Very confusing.
So again, Nebraska is getting really good at blowing leads, at losing close games. And it's going to be interesting with this next one. Apparently Northwestern has been very good at doing the same thing. And so they pulled out the game in overtime, but they blew a 24-point lead against Rutgers at home on Tuesday night, the same night that Nebraska lost to Michigan. And they ended up pulling it out, I think, by 1 in overtime. But that's a team that I don't think they've had a double, like their largest loss in conference play has been by 10 points. So they're losing a lot, but they have been competitive every game. So this is a big opportunity for Nebraska, but they're going to have to play really well to get this done. And this really does start a very important stretch in their schedule. And this is a 12 o'clock game on Saturday. So kind of an odd time. We'll see what the atmosphere is like in that place. But you look at their closing schedule, and 2, 4, 6, their next 7 games are against the bottom half of the Big Ten standings. So they close out the regular season at Wisconsin, but they've got Northwestern twice, Minnesota once, Iowa twice, and Maryland once, and Penn State once. So those are all the other, you look at the schedule, those are the 5 teams above Nebraska in the conference standings. So we talked about how difficult this schedule is going to be, and kind of heading into the season, that how front loaded Nebraska's conference schedule was. And it certainly played out that way, but now is a chance for it. If you're going to generate any kind of good feeling, any kind of momentum heading into the offseason, any kind of hope for the future and for this program, you got to start taking care of business in these games.
Yeah, and I'm looking at their Nebraska's KenPom page right now. The two of the 3 games where they have a above decent percentage chance given to win the game, and the next 2, Northwestern on Saturday and Minnesota for a Wednesday night 8 o'clock tip. next week. And then, I mean, Northwestern, it's not a bad matchup for Nebraska, like, player by player wise going down the depth chart. But I mean, like you said, they've hung around in all these games. They held Illinois to 59 points and only lost by 3. They've hung around with, I think their biggest conference loss, they lost by 20 to Purdue at Mackey Arena. I mean, that's nothing, that's nothing shocking. But Northwestern, they play smart. They don't turn the ball over. They walk it up the floor. They run set plays. I mean, it's going to be, there's no easy game in the Big Ten. But I mean, I said to you, when we were sitting at that Rutgers game that, I hate to say it, given the fact that this team is 0-10, but I mean, the rest of these home games are winnable. The rest of these home games, except for maybe Iowa, are winnable. And thankfully for, the fans listening, people are starting to worry about, what happens if they go 0-20 in the league. I'm looking here at KenPom, and KenPom says there's an 11.7% chance of Nebraska going winless in the league. So there is still a chance, but I mean, if there's a time to get one, it's gonna be one of these next two, or it's gonna be Maryland at home. And I say it's gonna be Maryland at home, and they just beat Michigan State, or they just
Northwestern beat Michigan State.
Northwestern beat Michigan State. Who did Maryland beat? Maryland beat somebody.
Yeah,
I think we talked about it. We talked about it last week. I mean, yes, these teams, in the bottom half of the Big Ten, they're beatable, but I feel like all of them have like punching above their level wins on the year. Maryland beat Illinois. That's who Maryland beat, and they trounced them too. So, I mean, but they trounced Illinois with no Kofi and no Curbelo. Curbelo did play. Yeah, Curbelo did play. No Kofi, but yeah. But
Kofi just had 37 and 14, I think, or 12, something like that in his last game. So important piece there. But
yeah, yes. Big Ten big men. They can make an impact. Having size in the Big Ten can be very beneficial. Yeah, 37, and I mean, 37 and 12. You were pretty close, but I mean, this is as important of a stretch that a 6-16 basketball team can possibly have. I mean, I really don't know what to expect at PBA on Saturday for like you said, a noon tip against Northwestern. I feel like all these games against Northwestern have been the most agonizing games the last 3 years under Fred. I remember that game the first year where there was like 60 combined free throws or whatever it was at the end of the year. The game, there's just all these games have been tough against Northwestern, but I mean, it just, like we said, I mean, it's Groundhog Day. We've been saying it all year. The parallels with this season and what we saw last fall with football, I mean, they grow bigger and bigger by the day. So, and we'll just have to see. Have to see. We don't know that you don't know what to expect with this basketball team right now.
Yeah, we'll I think see what they've got. Northwestern on Saturday, and then
8:00 Wednesday night tip against Minnesota. Yep.
Yeah. So we're either gonna be having we either do late night on Wednesday or we'll record on Thursday. So the next time that we talk to you is either we're going to be able to break down some wins, or a win at least, or
please just a win. Please just one. Just one, please.
Or yeah.
Just one conference win, please.
Either we're going to be able to break down Nebraska's first win, or things are going to get really dark on the podcast, because these are probably the two easiest games they have left on their schedule, at least 2 of the 3. So
yep.
In the meantime, stay tuned to Hail Varsity. I'll continue. We'll talk with Fred Hoiberg on Friday. I'll have a recap of that up on the website. I'll have the game coverage on Saturday. You can follow me at Jacob Patel _. You can follow Bigelow at @the_Bigelow on Twitter. Go like and review this podcast. These can't even get words out. Kind of, as Brandon Vogel says, do your podcast chores, 5-star ratings, tell your friends. We'd really love to kind of grow this a little bit. We've enjoyed doing it, and the more people that listen to it, the better it will be. So
yeah, even despite the year Nebraska's had, we've still had fun doing this. Misery loves company. Just kidding, but no, I mean it's been fun this year. Yeah, like you said, go leave you can leave star ratings on both Apple and Spotify. So if you're feeling kind, just leave a rating. We appreciate any and all support that you give either of us, and hopefully we have some positivity to talk to you guys about next week.
That very much so. I hope that is the case. And either way, we'll be back next week for another episode of Nebraska Shoot Around.
A Hurrdat Media Production.